Scapegoating and tinnitus. Being a scapegoat is completely terrifying. It's one of the most scary experiences that you can go through. It's when a group of people or a person decides that you are bad and they are good, and that they will use you as a place to put all their difficulty, and then if it's extreme they will push you out of the situation or drive you out of the community like a worthless plastic bottle or trash. And then once you've been trashed, once you've been ghosted or annihilated, then the idea is to keep you out. And what's awful about this situation is that it's very often a loving relationship, but something happens along the way where the person who's doing the scapegoating cannot accept their own difficulty, so they project that onto the other and then drive them out, and then they assume a position of me good, you bad. And if you're in the hideous situation of being a scapegoat, then no matter what you say or do, it will be perceived as bad. You'll be wrong or petty, or you will have made things up, or maybe you've got mental health issues. There will be any excuse to keep the bad onto you, and what will never happen is that the person doing the scapegoating will accept their own difficulty. So you never hear the word sorry, or the person who is scapegoating is unable to own any of their own shit or difficulty. So it's quite a primitive way of behaving. So you basically farm it out onto the other and then drive them out of the community and hope that they stop existing or don't have anything to do with you. And what's particularly difficult about this situation is that it means that there's no space for coming back into relationship. No matter how hard you try to sort things out or try to apologize, the attempt to repair will be just another excuse to cause problems. So it's almost like if you apologize 100 times or you try and sort things out, it just gets you into deeper and deeper water. And if you try and point out the shadow, you try and point out the difficulty, the shadow darkens. And if you say, look, this is what's happened, the denial gets stronger, and the hatred and the fear and the rejection gets even stronger and more forceful. And in very extreme situations, anybody involved in these very bullying tactics can be manipulated or controlled and become very much part of this setup. So that if somebody's behaving this way, then you must muck in, you must fill in with them, you must understand their point of view, and woe betide you if you don't. Because if you disagree, or if you have your own personal viewpoint which is different, then people who profess my way or the highway, basically, if you don't agree or it's contentious, then you may be cast out too. One of the hardest things about dealing with bullies is that they're quite terrifying people, so that if you're talking to them, you can find yourself going a bit blank and you kind of lose the thread, and you can very quickly feel like you've got it all wrong, and you can be pulled into a situation where you start really genuinely believing that you're an awful bad person. And then you step out of the negative vortex. It's like a sort of negative spell, that's been cast upon you, and you suddenly get your mind back and you think, well, wait a minute, no, this is what I want to say. So when you're dealing with bullies, it's actually very good if you have anything to say that you write it down, you have points written down, so that when your mind goes numb and you start freezing because you're terrified, then you can still remember what your point of view was or what you wanted to express. In extreme cases, you can get tyrants who start dictating how a person should think and who they can speak to and how they can live their life, and start controlling phone calls or places where you can meet. And if somebody's got to that extreme level of control, let's imagine somebody's having a happy conversation and then the bully comes along and says, oh, wait a minute, you're not supposed to have a happy conversation with that person because they're somebody I have rejected from my community. How dare you speak to that person? You must reject them like I do. You get these very powerful scapegoating forces that can be requirements for a community of people. When you get to that level of control and paranoia and fear, it's really extreme behavior, and it just seems very, very difficult to sort out. So for people who live with bullies and for people who have been scapegoated, get help. It's very scary. And as in my psychotherapy practice, I deal a lot with bullying. One of the most important things is to talk out about it, to speak out, to get support. Bullies act covertly within their kingdom, within their world. So for example, at work, people will behave differently when you're just alone with the bully, and then there will be a very strong force not to speak out about it. But if you go to human resources and then report this back, and then get a witness in, and you start opening things out, then the untoward, inappropriate behavior can start to be seen and witnessed by other people. So, it is a very scary situation, and unfortunately a lot of people with tinnitus have bullying setups in the family or at work, or they have unfortunately been in the hideous situation of being scapegoated, and they become a conduit or a toilet for the family shit, and all the people around will just not see any of their stuff because you are the toilet, and as long as you're around they don't have to deal with their stuff, and they will never be able to say, gosh, I acknowledge that I have done some really awful things and I'm sorry. This is something that can be incredibly helpful, but it's unlikely to happen with bullies and being in scapegoat position. So please do get support, get help, speak out about these things. If you are being abused, if there's an abuse of power going on that's denying you access to friends, family, or you're not allowed to sort things out, you're being kept in a position of annihilation, having been ghosted or cast out, it's very, very helpful to get support, because in difficult, extreme situations this can have devastating consequences, and you have to be quite a strong person to withstand this kind of behavior, especially when you get a group of people who are projecting negativity onto you.